There is something delicate about a dream in its earliest form, something tender, almost like a whisper that has not yet learned how to stand against the wind. The moment you speak it too soon, you invite the world to measure it, to question it, to weigh it down with doubt it was never meant to carry. Not every vision is ready for the noise of outside voices. Some are meant to grow in the quiet, where belief is not interrupted and courage is not tested before it is strong enough to endure. What you are building deserves the dignity of time, the protection of silence, and the grace to become real before it is ever explained. There is a quiet strength that settles over a person who learns the value of silence, a strength that does not need applause to feel real, nor recognition to feel worthy. In a world that urges you to speak, to share, to prove yourself at every turn, choosing silence can feel almost unnatural. Yet, it is within that silence that your power begins to gather. It is where your thoughts learn to breathe without interruption, where your ideas are not rushed into judgment, and where your spirit is allowed to grow without the weight of outside expectations pressing against it. Too often, we scatter our energy by giving every thought a voice and every plan an audience. We speak before we are ready, explain before we are certain, and reveal before we are rooted. And in doing so, we unknowingly place our fragile beginnings into the hands of opinions that were never meant to shape them. Not everyone who listens understands, and not everyone who understands supports. Some will doubt, some will question, and some will unintentionally plant seeds of hesitation in a mind that was once clear. What could have grown strong in stillness becomes weakened by noise. There is wisdom in allowing your dreams to remain unspoken while they are still finding their footing. Just as a seed does not break through the soil the moment it is planted, your vision does not need to be seen the moment it is born. Beneath the surface, there is a process unfolding, roots stretching, strength forming, life preparing itself for the day it meets the light. If that process is disturbed too early, if it is exposed before it is ready, it risks losing the very foundation it needs to stand tall. Silence, then, is not absence, it is protection. It is the unseen work that ensures what eventually rises will not easily fall. When you begin to guard your inner world, something remarkable happens. You become less dependent on validation and more anchored in your own belief. You stop seeking permission to grow and start trusting your own timing. Your actions become more deliberate, your focus more steady, and your confidence more genuine. There is no need to announce every step when you are certain of your direction. There is no need to explain your journey when you understand your purpose. In that quiet certainty, you move differently, not with hesitation, but with calm determination. And when the time finally comes for your work to be seen, for your efforts to take shape in the world, it will not need loud introductions or constant explanations. It will speak for itself, carrying the weight of all those silent moments that strengthened it. People will see the result, but they will not fully know the discipline, the restraint, and the quiet faith that brought it into being. That is the power of what is kept private. It grows without pressure, it strengthens without interference, and when it finally reveals itself, it does so with a presence that cannot be easily shaken. There is a sacredness to a plan that has not yet met the world, a quiet holiness in the early stages of something you are still learning how to believe in yourself. Before it becomes visible, before it earns approval, it lives in a delicate space between hope and uncertainty. And in that space, it needs protection, not exposure. The moment you begin to share it too freely, you invite voices that may not understand its purpose, and doubt has a way of entering through doors you did not realize you had opened. It is not that people wish you harm. Often they simply speak from the limits of their own vision. They measure your dreams against their fears, your possibilities against their past disappointments. And if you are not careful, their uncertainty can begin to echo louder than your own belief. A plan that once felt clear can become clouded, not because it has lost its value, but because it has been placed in an environment where it was never meant to grow. What was once a steady flame becomes a flicker, struggling to hold its light against the winds of too many opinions. There is wisdom, then, in learning to sit with your plans in silence, to nurture them quietly until they gain strength from within rather than from outside validation. When you keep your intentions close, you give them room to take shape without interruption. You allow yourself to make mistakes without scrutiny, to adjust your path without explanation, and to build confidence without needing constant reassurance. In that quiet process, your plan becomes more than an idea, it becomes a conviction. You begin to move with a different kind of assurance when your plans are rooted in private discipline. Your actions carry intention because they are not performed for an audience. You are not rushing to show progress or prove your worth. You are simply doing the work step by step with patience and clarity. And in that stillness, something powerful begins to form. A sense of direction that is not easily shaken by doubt, because it was not built in the presence of it. There will come a time when your plans no longer need to be hidden, when they have grown strong enough to stand in the light without bending under pressure. And when that moment arrives, what you reveal will not be fragile or uncertain, but steady and undeniable. It will carry the quiet confidence of something that has been tested in solitude and strengthened in silence. By then, doubt may still exist around you, but it will no longer have a place within you. Because what you protected in its earliest form has now become something real, something resilient, and something no outside voice can easily dismantle. There is a kind of dignity in the way a person carries their struggles when they understand that not every pain is meant to be displayed, and not every wound is meant to be explained while it is still open. Life will test you in ways that feel unfair, unexpected, and at times unbearable. And in those moments, the world may tempt you to turn your pain into a story too soon, to speak it before you have even understood it. But there is a quiet wisdom in allowing your struggles to remain your teachers before they ever become your testimony. When you rush to share what you are still trying to survive, you risk speaking from a place of confusion rather than clarity. Pain, in its raw form, does not always carry truth. It carries emotion, it carries weight, it carries questions that have not yet found their answers. And when those questions are placed before the world, they can be met with misunderstanding, judgment, or advice that does not fit the depth of what you are experiencing. What was meant to shape you can begin to scatter, losing its purpose in the noise of too many voices. There is something powerful about facing your struggles in private, where there is no pressure to explain yourself, no expectation to make your pain understandable to others. In that quiet space, you begin to listen more closely, not to the opinions around you, but to the lessons within you. You start to recognize patterns, to understand your own strength, to see how even the most difficult moments are shaping your character in ways that comfort never could. Growth, in its truest form, is often silent. It does not announce itself, it reveals itself over time. Your struggles are not punishments. They are instructions written in a language that only patience can translate. They teach you where you need to stand firmer, where you need to let go, and where you need to believe more deeply in yourself. But these lessons take time to unfold. They require stillness, reflection, and a willingness to sit with discomfort without rushing to escape it. When you give yourself that time, your pain begins to transform, not into something that defines you, but into something that refines you. And when the day comes that you choose to speak about what you have been through, your voice will carry a different kind of power. It will no longer be weighed down by confusion or seeking validation. Instead, it will be grounded in understanding, shaped by growth, and guided by truth. Your story will not sound like a cry for help. It will sound like a quiet declaration of strength. People will not just hear your words. They will feel the journey behind them. What you keep private while it is still shaping you becomes the very thing that strengthens you. And when it is finally ready to be shared, it will not need to be loud to be heard. It will stand on its own, carrying the depth of everything you endured in silence, and the wisdom you gained because you chose to learn before you chose to speak. As if speaking alone will bring them to life, seeking encouragement, validation, or reassurance from those around them. But in doing so, they unintentionally expose their direction to opinions that may not align with their vision. Some will question, some will doubt, and some will project their own limitations onto a path they have never walked. What was once a clear intention can become crowded with hesitation. There is wisdom in allowing your strategy to develop in silence, where it can grow without interruption. In that quiet space, you are free to think deeply, to adjust your approach, and to make decisions without the pressure of having to explain them. You are not performing for anyone, you are simply preparing. And preparation, when done in stillness, becomes more thoughtful, more deliberate, and more effective. It is in these unseen moments that your foundation is built, strong enough to support what you are working toward. When you move in silence, you also protect your energy. You are no longer caught in the cycle of seeking reactions or responding to feedback that may not serve you. Your focus becomes sharper because it is not divided among too many voices. You begin to trust your instincts more, to rely on your own understanding, and to act with confidence that does not need to be constantly reinforced. There is a quiet discipline in this way of moving, a calm determination that does not rush or waver, and then, when the time comes to act, your movement carries a different kind of impact. It is not anticipated, not overanalyzed, and not weakened by doubt. It arrives fully formed, backed by thought, effort, and quiet persistence. People may be surprised, not because your success was sudden, but because they were not present for the process that created it. What they see as an unexpected result is, in truth, the outcome of countless unseen moments where you chose focus over noise. In the end, there is something deeply powerful about letting your actions speak in place of your words. You do not need to announce your next move when you are committed to making it real. You do not need to convince others of your direction when you are certain of where you are going. Strategy does not demand attention, it demands intention. And when it is nurtured in stillness, it gains a strength that cannot be easily shaken, a presence that does not need to be loud to be felt. There is a quiet boundary that every soul must learn to draw, a gentle but firm line between what belongs to the world and what belongs only to you. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to walk through every room of your inner world. Some are only meant to stand at the doorway, to greet you briefly, to pass through without ever knowing the depth of what you carry within. And there is nothing cold or unkind about this. It is wisdom. It is self-respect. It is the understanding that your truth is not something to be handed out without care. Too often we open ourselves too quickly, mistaking access for connection. We share our thoughts, our dreams, our wounds with people who have not earned the right to hold them. And when those parts of us are misunderstood, dismissed, or mishandled, we feel the weight of it deeply. It is not just disappointment, it is a quiet kind of exhaustion that comes from giving your energy to spaces where it was never truly valued. Not everyone knows how to honor what is real and fragile within you, and it is not your responsibility to teach them at the cost of your own peace. There is a difference between being open and being unguarded. Openness is a strength. It allows love, connection, and understanding to flow into your life. But being unguarded, without discernment, can leave you vulnerable to the carelessness of others. When you begin to choose wisely who gets to hear your truth, you are not closing yourself off. You are protecting the parts of you that are still growing, still healing, still becoming. You are recognizing that trust is not something that should be given freely, but something that should be built moment by moment through consistency and care. As you become more intentional with your boundaries, you will notice a shift within yourself. You will feel lighter, less burdened by the need to explain or justify your feelings to those who do not truly understand them. Your energy will no longer be scattered across conversations that leave you drained. Instead, it will remain with you, fueling your growth, strengthening your sense of self, and allowing you to move through life with greater clarity. There is a quiet peace that comes from knowing that not everyone has access to your deepest thoughts, and that peace becomes a source of strength. And when you do choose to share yourself, when you allow someone into the deeper spaces of your world, it will come from a place of intention, not impulse. It will be given to those who have shown patience, who have demonstrated respect, who have proven that they can hold your truth without trying to reshape it. In those rare and meaningful connections, your words will not feel heavy or misplaced. They will feel understood, received with care, and returned with the same honesty you offered. Consistency that does not depend on how you feel. There will be days when your energy is low, when your confidence feels distant, when the path ahead seems uncertain. And still, there is a quiet decision to continue, to show up, to do the work even when it feels ordinary and unnoticed. That is where strength is formed, not in grand gestures, but in small, repeated actions that no one else keeps track of but you. Too often, people are drawn to the idea of success without fully understanding the solitude that builds it. They admire the result, the achievement, the moment of recognition, but they do not see the discipline that made it possible. They do not see the early mornings, the late nights, the moments of doubt that were faced in silence, or the persistence it took to continue without immediate reward. What appears effortless on the surface is often the product of effort that was never displayed. When you commit yourself to private discipline, you begin to develop a relationship with yourself that is rooted in trust. You learn that you can rely on your own word, that you will follow through even when it is difficult. That trust becomes a quiet confidence, one that does not need validation because it has been proven through action. You are no longer waiting for the right moment or the right feeling. You are creating progress through steady, intentional effort. There is also a freedom that comes with this kind of discipline. You are not performing for approval, not adjusting your pace to match the expectations of others. Your focus becomes internal, guided by your own standards rather than external pressure. In that space, growth becomes more authentic, more sustainable. You are not rushing to be seen, you are taking the time to become. And when the results finally begin to show, when your work becomes visible and your progress can no longer be hidden, it carries a different kind of weight. It is not fragile or temporary because it was built on a foundation that was strengthened over time. People may see the outcome and call it success, but what they are truly witnessing is the reflection of countless private moments where you chose discipline over comfort, focus over distraction, and persistence over doubt. What you do when no one is watching does not disappear. It accumulates, it shapes you, it prepares you, it defines the level at which you will eventually stand. And when the world finally takes notice, it will not be because of what you said you would do, but because of what you quietly, consistently did when there was no one there to see it. There are wounds that do not show themselves on the surface, quiet aches that live beneath your smile, behind your words, in the spaces where no one thinks to look. And when those wounds are fresh, they carry a tenderness that cannot withstand careless handling. It becomes easy in those moments to reach outward, to speak, to share, to release the weight in the presence of anyone willing to listen. But not every ear is gentle, and not every heart knows how to hold what is fragile without breaking it further. Pain has a voice, but healing requires a different kind of language, one that is patient, one that does not rush to be heard before it is understood. When you expose your wounds too soon, you risk placing them in environments that were never meant for their recovery. Some people will respond with advice that does not fit your experience, others may minimize what you feel, and some may simply not recognize the depth of what you carry. And in those moments, what you needed as comfort can return to you as confusion. There is a quiet strength in choosing to sit with your emotions before you offer them to the world. In that stillness, you begin to understand them, not as something to escape, but as something to learn from. You start to recognize where the pain began, how it shaped your thoughts, how it influenced your choices, and as that understanding deepens, something begins to shift. What once felt overwhelming becomes something you can hold without being consumed by it. Healing is not a performance, and it does not require an audience. It is a deeply personal process, one that unfolds in its own time and in its own way. It asks for honesty, for reflection, for the courage to face what hurts without trying to disguise it. And in that private work, you begin to rebuild yourself, not in response to how others see you, but in alignment with who you truly are. The more you tend to your wounds with care, the less they define you, and the more they transform into quiet sources of strength. This does not mean you must carry everything alone. There is value in sharing, but there is also wisdom in choosing where and with whom you share. When your heart has found some clarity, when your pain has softened into understanding, your words will come from a place of strength rather than seeking. You will no longer be asking others to make sense of what you feel. You will be expressing what you have already come to understand within yourself. And when you speak from that place, your story changes. It is no longer a reflection of hurt that is still open. It becomes a reflection of growth that has taken place. Others may hear you, and they may even find comfort in your words, but you are no longer dependent on their response to feel whole. What was once a wound seeking attention becomes a testimony grounded in healing. Your emotions are not meant to be hidden, but they are meant to be honored. And honoring them means giving them the time, the space, and the care they deserve before placing them in the hands of the world. Because when you choose healing over exposure, you are not silencing yourself. You are strengthening your voice so that when it is finally heard, it carries truth, depth, and a quiet, unshakable grace. There is a fragile moment in the life of every goal, a moment when it is still finding its shape, still learning how to stand on the strength of your belief alone. In that early stage, it does not need a crowd, it needs clarity. Yet it is often in that very moment that we feel the urge to invite others in, to gather opinions, to seek reassurance that what we are pursuing makes sense. And while guidance can be valuable, too many voices can begin to pull a clear vision in too many directions. Each person you speak to carries their own experiences, their own fears, their own understanding of what is possible. And without realizing it, they begin to filter your goal through the lens of their own limitations. One may tell you to slow down, another may suggest a different path, while someone else may question whether it is worth the effort at all. None of these voices may intend harm, but when they begin to overlap, they create a noise that is difficult to separate from your own thoughts. What once felt certain can start to feel uncertain, not because the goal has changed, but because your focus has been divided. There is a difference between seeking wisdom and surrendering direction. Wisdom refines your path, but too many opinions can blur it. When you constantly adjust your vision to fit what others think it should be, you begin to move further away from what you truly intended. Your goal becomes less of a reflection of your purpose and more of a collection of borrowed ideas. And in that process, something important is lost, the original spark that made it yours. When you learn to limit the voices you allow into your journey, you begin to protect that spark. You give yourself the space to think deeply, to make decisions that align with your own understanding rather than external pressure. You begin to trust your instincts more, even when they lead you in directions that others may not fully understand. That trust becomes a quiet anchor, holding you steady when doubt tries to rise. This does not mean you must walk blindly or refuse all guidance. It means choosing carefully whose voice you value and why. A few thoughtful perspectives can strengthen you, But a constant stream of opinions can weaken your resolve. Not every suggestion deserves your attention, and not every concern deserves your energy. When you become selective, you begin to hear more clearly, not just the world around you, but the voice within you that often gets lost in the noise. As your focus sharpens, your actions follow with greater precision. You are no longer hesitating at every step, no longer second-guessing every decision. There is a steadiness in the way you move, a confidence that does not come from knowing everything, but from knowing enough to keep going. And that confidence grows stronger each time you choose your own direction over the confusion of too many influences. In the end, your goal does not need to be understood by everyone to be real. It does not need constant validation to have value. What it needs is your commitment, your focus, and your willingness to protect it from becoming diluted. Because when you hold your vision with clarity, when you guard it from unnecessary noise, you allow it to grow into something that is not only strong, but unmistakably your own. There is a quiet assurance that settles within a person who no longer feels the need to explain themselves at every turn, a calm presence that does not rush to defend, justify, or prove what is already in motion. Constant explanation often comes from a place of uncertainty, from the feeling that one must be understood in order to be accepted. But as you grow, you begin to realize that not every step you take requires approval, and not every decision needs to be translated into words for others to validate its worth. Some paths are meant to be walked, not debated. When you rely too heavily on explaining your choices, you give away pieces of your focus. Your energy becomes divided between living your life and making sure others understand it. In doing so, you may find yourself adjusting your pace, softening your direction, or even doubting your own instincts just to align with what others can comprehend. But your life is not a presentation, and your journey is not something that needs to be continuously narrated to be meaningful. It is something that unfolds in its own rhythm, whether observed or not. Quiet confidence grows when you begin to trust the process you are in, even when it is not yet visible to others. It is the understanding that progress does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it appears in the small, consistent steps you take when no one is watching, in the decisions you make without seeking permission, in the patience you show while your results are still forming. In those moments, you are building something that does not depend on external validation to exist. There will always be people who question what they do not understand, who look at your silence and interpret it as uncertainty, or your restraint as a lack of direction. But quiet confidence does not react to every assumption. It remains steady, rooted in the awareness that clarity does not need to be defended in order to be real. When you know where you are going, you do not need to convince everyone else to see it. You simply continue, allowing your actions to speak with consistency over time. This kind of confidence is not loud, nor is it seeking attention. It carries itself with a sense of ease, free from the pressure to perform or explain. It understands that growth takes time, and that being in the process is not something to apologize for. A life that is still unfolding is not incomplete. It is alive, evolving, becoming something that cannot always be captured in words. And because of that, it deserves space to develop without constant interruption. In the end, quiet confidence becomes its own form of clarity. It allows you to move forward without hesitation, to stand firm without resistance, and to trust that what you are building will reveal itself in due time. You no longer feel the need to explain every chapter while you are still writing it. Instead, you focus on living it fully, knowing that understanding will come naturally to those who are meant to see it, and that your journey will speak for itself when it is ready to be seen.